I am going to bring up Melissa Brock. She is an affiliated professional of the center. Daniel already introduced her, but her virtue that we collaborate with her around is curiosity. So today, she's going to help us all get curious about burnout and how we can overcome burnout. And she's getting mic'd, and here she comes. All right, thank you. Let's give a round of applause for Melissa.
Thank you, thank you, thank you. I am so happy to be here with you all today. And I, as a curious person, I would absolutely love to talk with you one-on-one and ask you a bunch of questions. I have really appreciated the opportunity to do that with some familiar faces and also meet some new folks. So please stay after so I can get to know you and make those connections. Let's talk a little bit about curiosity, and I have an anecdote that just happened a couple weeks ago. I went to a foraging workshop, which is not something I had ever thought about doing, but it sort of came up when I was doing some searching. And so me, my husband, and my 13-year-old son went to a foraging workshop. And one of the things that was really interesting, a new perspective, I know Patty talked a little bit about perspective, is that we met in a place that I had been sort of hiking and exploring a few times, and we spent a few hours together. There was about 20 of us who had signed up for this workshop. And at the end of it, I realized that I had this whole different real perspective and view of this place that was pretty familiar, because normally what I do is I sort of go and I look out and maybe I listen for birds or that kind of thing. But we were really focused on specific places, on, like, has anybody ever tried foraging or know anything about it? So, you might look at the bottom of a tree, and that would be a place where you might find some mushrooms, or you would look among certain kinds of leaves and you would find an acorn or something that you could forage. And so the reason why I had that insight is because I went into the day, one of my favorite things to do is to sort of go into a day, go into nature with a question, right? So my question was really about parenting. This was a weekend, and I thought, so I do want to ask, does anybody have a teenager in the room? I know I've talked to a few folks. Me too, 13-year-old boy. And does anybody have a toddler in the room? Yeah, me too. So I have a 1.5-year-old daughter, and then I have a 13-year-old son. So we're doing puberty on one hand, and then we're doing, walking and talking and touching everything and pulling stuff out of the walls on the other hand. So I thought, I'm going to be in nature for a few hours. Let me sort of ask the question, what is there to learn from nature, from this space and this place around parenting? And that's what I came up with. I sort of had that aha of really, truly, when we look at something through a different lens, when I decide to sort of focus and get really clear and have the lens of I'm looking over here for this and this, that it's a totally different perspective. So I saw things very differently than I used to. And that was one of the tools that I use when I think about curiosity. So I would love to hear from you all. I know there's lots of different things that might come to mind when you think about curiosity, what it means to be curious, to grow in your curiosity. Some of you all might have sort of a negative connotation of curiosity killed the cat, or Curious George and how he's always getting into mischief and doing things he's not supposed to do. I have a really positive connotation with it, of course, but instead of, and we're a little bit limited on time, so instead of spending, a lot of time talking about the words that come up when you think about curiosity or the stories, I'd like to invite you all to embody curiosity. So if you would, I know you're sipping your coffee still and having your snacks, but stand up, let's take like 15 seconds and don't overthink it, and just embody what you think curiosity looks like, feels like. What is curiosity if you had to do curiosity and put it on? I know this is uncomfortable and a little different, right? Awesome. Yeah, okay. Okay, perfect. Thank you all for humoring me. You did great. You did great. I'm curious, I looked around and I saw a few things that sort of stuck out. Did you notice anything of yourself or in others when you saw how they moved their body and what their stance was when they were thinking about curiosity? What did you notice?
I saw people looking, like they were making gestures with their hands to say, like, I'm looking more closely at something.
Yeah. So looking closely, making gestures with their eyes, maybe mimicking binoculars. Anybody else? Did you notice any themes? Yes.
I don't know your name in the back, so hold on, but he's like embracing all of it.
Yeah, that was the thing that I think I noticed, that embracing, that there were a few people who sort of had their arms out and there was like an openness, a sort of expansiveness. And I really noticed that. I think one of the things I really appreciate about curiosity, and my stance would be maybe something like this, where you're sort of holding something in front of you and checking it out. But there isn't a sense of closedness, right? So like to be able to be curious about something, you can't kind of hold it tightly in your hands. So it's not judgment, it's not control, almost by definition. To be curious and really look at something, you can't be in control mode, you can't be in judgment mode. And then I think the other thing is sort of like being able to look around and sort of check out from a new perspective. That's one of the things I really appreciate about it too. So the simplest definition, which is the one, of course, that I love, of curiosity is just the desire to know. There's a humility in that, I think. There's a sense of, I don't know the answer, and then there's also a care behind it. I don't know and I want to know. I'm interested in going further. I'm putting one foot out. I'm putting a hand out. I am doing that embracing. I don't know and I want to know. Scott Shigioka, who's at Berkeley and works for the Greater Good Science Center, and he's coming out with a book, I think later this year, even in the next few weeks, called Seek, and it's about curiosity. And he talks about deep curiosity as the desire to understand. So there's the desire to know, and then there's the desire to understand. So really what we'll be talking about today in terms of how to communicate in a way that embodies and fosters curiosity in a relationship, in a team, in a workplace, is really about that deep curiosity of wanting to know, we don't know, and we really care to know about what's going on with somebody. So I am not going to, with our time, there's obviously tons of research, there's so many ways that curiosity is connected to lots of great outcomes, related to feeling better, achieving more, having closer relationships. So if you're interested in, higher engagement, lower turnover, any of those things, curiosity is a tool that you can look at. I know that curiosity generally is not in the sort of top 10 list of things that you would say, as a leader, I really want to build that skill of curiosity. So I'm hoping that today you'll be convinced that actually indeed it is something that we can put on the table as a way to show our care and build relationships, build trust, and innovate. So just to sort of reconnect us to burnout, since we've been sort of gushing about how wonderful curiosity is, again, these three components of burnout are really needed in order for us to say, we're there, we're at burnout, this is not just stress. So one of the things I thought about when we started talking about how can we address burnout in this sort of virtuous way is when we overlay positive psychology, positive leadership onto this question and this big obstacle of burnout and how it shows up in our teams and in our world, is what questions can we be asking that feel different, that are not coming from a place of hopelessness? And what tools do we not have? We don't have the money, we're so busy we don't even have time to address it. But what are some sort of positive psychology questions and some stances in terms of addressing it? So things like, if we talk about decreased effectiveness, to talk to the team about what does it look like, what does it feel like when we are at our best? We just did that example on an individual level, but as a team, what does effectiveness look like and feel like when we're at our best? So really sort of painting that picture and envisioning together that future, that sort of positive example of effectiveness. And you can imagine going through with some of these other ones too. So emotional exhaustion, what does it look like for us individually, as a team, as an organization? When we are not exhausted, we are thriving, we feel energized and in flow, and these are the kinds of tasks that we could do all day and still have energy at the end of the day, right? So these are the kinds of questions that help us just turn the object, the question of burnout around and sort of look at it from a different perspective. So that's sort of the hope today. So I told you we would talk a little bit about pre-burnout. So you can see when you look at the tool that we're going to dig into in a few minutes, the pre-burnout individual user manual. Pre-burnout is something that we don't hear as much about, but it's so important because the idea here is what we're proposing is that we really don't want to wait until we're at the end. Of course we don't have resources if we're burnt out. Of course we don't have extra energy. It's really hard to be positive and look at things from a different perspective. We just don't feel as resourced, right? We're in that chronic stress. We have chronic, maybe physical pain, right? There's a lot going on. And so if we can have the conversation, create this culture of open communication before we get to that point, we're gonna be able to decrease burnout before we get there. The challenge is we don't talk about it until it's sort of in your face. So that's the proposal that we have today. So I won't go through all of these in detail, but you can see, starting out with the honeymoon phase, that's a great one, right? We love it when somebody new comes on the team and they're so excited to be there and they see everything through these rose-colored glasses and they're just, you know, they're excited. They have that sort of rookie mentality and lots of new ideas. When we get to the sort of second stage, which is the onset of stress, this is where we start to think about differentiating between, okay, we're at stress, we feel the stress, is this the normal kind of stress that we're gonna have on a day-to-day basis? Is this because there's just something going on in the organization? Maybe we have a deadline and we have this sort of all hands on deck kind of thing happening, and so we're stressed, right? It's only natural. But at what point do we want to, and this is something we have to talk about as a team, you know, as leaders, we can go to our folks and say, okay, at what point are we going to stop and talk about how we can support each other differently, right? Learning some lessons from that so we can actually go from, you know, the chronic stress coming back to maybe just regular old stress, right? That's progress. So being able to have conversations along the way is really what we're proposing as a tool today. So we're going to talk about this user manual. Has anybody heard of the idea of using a user manual in the workplace, creating a user manual to, oh good. Well, I'm so thrilled to share that with you all, that idea of a user manual. So really what that is, and a lot of folks have used it coming into a team to say, when you interact with me, here's some things you should know about me, right? Here are my strengths. Here are my triggers. Here are some of the things that I can do if I need to, because we all have those things, you know, that we have to do, but they drain me. They're not my favorite kinds of things. Here are some ways that I'm misunderstood, right? So you can sort of bring all these things to the table as sort of an introduction. And of course, these are conversations that we can have even with intact teams who have been around for a while. So this tool is us saying, this user manual, and let's overlay burnout into it. So we're really going to specifically talk about, for you individually, for you teammate, for you leader, as we work together, what might it look like? How can we support each other? So it's fairly simple, and I know some of the tools we've offered today, you can either use one-on-one. So these are the kinds of questions that you can talk through. You can do it as a teammate and share it with your leader and have those kinds of conversations. Or if it makes more sense to do it as a team, everybody can complete them, and we can do kind of like we've done at some of the tables today, and share as a team. So a lot of this is going to depend on, and we'll talk a little bit more about that. I would love afterwards for you all to come up and share and say, how might I shift this to be more effective and relevant and fit into my culture on my team. So we'll talk more about that. But there's a lot of different ways that we can use this, but it really is meant to be individual to you. You can see on there, there's sort of some recommended questions. It may take one question for somebody to look at and say, okay, this is the question I know I need to talk to my leader about, and that's perfectly fine too. So the process that we've outlined is to complete the questionnaire. You have this conversation with your leader or with your team, and then you identify a single priority. So for some of us, this is hard. Does anybody have a hard time sort of like choosing one thing because they have to say no to a bunch of other things? It all feels kind of important sometimes, right? So this is the challenge of this process, is to say, we know we're all really busy. Let's choose one thing after we've had this conversation in the questionnaire to start with. So we're really talking about baby steps, doing sort of a bite-sized approach and finding ways to make incremental progress, and that's perfect. So we're gonna identify a single priority, and then this new tool that I'm probably gonna introduce. Has anybody heard of the question burst? Yep. You all have, my teammates have. So the question burst is, I think, a really useful tool from Hal Gregerson. And that's what we're gonna spend some time on today. And it's so simple, and it's really taking a question, taking a challenge, and throwing questions at it. So that's what we're gonna practice today. So after we do the question burst, and we're gonna do that together, then you sort of experiment based on what comes out of that. So you might have a question. I was doing some work several months ago, and I decided to do the question burst because I was feeling a little stuck of like, how can I really serve my clients in a deeper way? It felt like there was something missing. So I thought, let me do the question burst. So I just went outside in my backyard, set the 4-minute timer, and like my sort of challenge was, what is it that this team really needs? And then I just threw questions at that obstacle for 4 minutes. And out of that, there was one of the questions that I asked of myself, right? I'm sitting there doing this experiment with myself. One of the questions that came out was, what's the most radical way to approach this? And it wasn't that was necessarily the solution, because it really didn't matter. I think one of the things that's so interesting about asking great questions is sometimes it really doesn't matter whether we actually answer the question. It's not about that. It is that sort of curious stance, seeing what we're gonna, focus on and what perspective we will have. So through that lens of what's the most radical way to approach this, it had me just sort of like look at the problem a little bit differently, and I was able to bring in some new tools, and we did sort of like this embodiment piece with the team that really helped us break through in terms of some of the relationships. So that's just a quick example of how the question burst works. So in that example, we will experiment and see how, okay, now that we know this question is what's the most radical way to approach this, then the experimentation is just somehow, and it can be very passive, so we're not talking about, I know we have a lot of academics in the room, this is not experiment where we have to go get data and add a bunch of other things to our to-do list. It's sort of spending some time and opening up and seeing, like I do in nature, right? What might there be? What tools might there be? What insights might there be? And so that's the work of the experiment phase. And then we're going to talk about integrate after we try this together. The other thing that I want to highlight that's so important in this process is a leader guide. So if you're the leader role in this sort of conversation, it's so important to have that self-curiosity, right? A lot of, I think all leadership starts with self-leadership. So the humility, the compassion, the playfulness, and yes, the curiosity with ourselves. So the leader guide is a way for you as the leader, before you have this conversation, to stop and sort of take off some of what's not helpful. Maybe there's a desire to push the team in a certain direction with this conversation. Maybe there is a desire to throw money at the problem because you don't think you have time to address it. So whatever that is, it's just really important to know what assumptions you're bringing into the conversation, maybe what biases you're bringing into the conversation, and to be able to set that aside. Actually, Patty, when you were sharing about the about rituals, and I was really, going through that process and thinking about that, I thought this might be a place where there's a ritual to sort of take off the assumptions before you go into one of these conversations, right? To sort of like physically say, okay, I'm going to set these things aside, my desire to do things this way, my tendency to overthink this, that. So setting that aside, maybe I'll include a ritual in there. So let's check our time. Okay, we've got a few minutes to sort of work together here. And I would love for you all at your tables, again, I know we've got a couple small tables, but if we can have one brave person at each table share some challenge when it comes to burnout. So it might be a question of, I'm really trying to understand how I can set boundaries. That feels like, a fruitful place to explore. Maybe it's that I'm just having a really hard time in this work at home culture to differentiate between work and home. I don't have that sort of commute in like I used to, for example. So depending on where you are with preventing burnout, I would love for one person at each table to just think about some challenge, some obstacle, some question that you might have when it comes to either treating, preventing, reducing burnout with yourself or your team. So I'll give you a couple minutes to sort of decide at your tables who's going to be the brave soul that says, yep, I've got something I'd love your all's input on. And just like 2 minutes to sort of share and share with the rest of your table what that is. Got it? Okay. I'm interrupting to make sure, I know some of you all are wanting to solve these problems already, and so since we're not there yet, I'll interrupt. So we have done step 1, right? Hopefully everybody had the chance to sort of state the challenge, what the obstacle is, what the question is. And so now, this is going to be hard for some of you all because we're not answering the questions. The other part that's really hard is when we ask questions, we're not saying, well, the only reason I'm asking this is because, right, we're not qualifying any of it. We're not saying, I don't know how this is going to sound, but, like this might be wild, but we're just going to ask the question. Right? So what we need now is somebody else to volunteer to just be the note taker at the table. And so we're going to take 4 minutes this time, so you have twice as long. And anybody and everybody at the table gets to ask a question about this challenge or obstacle. Right? So no answers, just questions. Are we clear? All right, we're going to play another song. Somebody's going to take notes and you all will ask 4 minutes of questions. Okay, that's 4 minutes. You did it. Okay. So we only have a few minutes to sort of debrief and move on to playfulness, which will be really fun. Okay. I hate to interrupt you all. I know you see, this shows me that you all have really gotten some energy about these issues. So let's start to share, if I can. Is anybody willing to share? We've got about a minute or so just to hear from you all what you may have learned through that process of asking questions. Anybody got a really good question they're going to take away? Yeah, Trish.
I don't have a question. I'm just
Oh.
going to say, what if?
What if? Okay. Great. Yeah, Trish?
So I thought it was really interesting the tendency to want to qualify why your question was asked.
Uh-huh.
So how many times have we asked a question thinking we have to qualify it and give us permission to not qualify it?
Yeah.
I think created, we have a gazillion questions. Yeah. And it gave us permission to not justify qualifying.
Great. Yeah. So I love that you said noticing, right? So noticing maybe with some curiosity. Why do I want to qualify this so much? What is that? Where does that come from? I think there were some folks, maybe when we did that embodiment exercise of wanting to know, did I do it right or wrong? Like I know I have that tendency sometimes, so it's interesting to notice that. Yes?
I feel like there are only two of us here, but I feel like our questions escalated pretty quickly from like, why is that a problem to what is the meaning of life?
Wow.
Why do we have to work in the first place?
Right. Are we even here? Yeah. Yeah, that's great. I love that. So in 4 minutes, you went from maybe a place that felt a little tactical, some incremental questions, to kind of like, wait a second, how does this connect to the meaning of life? Which is beautiful. Great. Yes?
It was hard to not answer.
Right. Hard to not answer the question, of course. Absolutely. Yes?
I was just going to say it's easier, I think, for me to ask the question knowing that there's no answer coming because it's not, you know, I don't have to qualify it, I'm not just being nosy, it's just something to think about.
Yeah, so some of those parameters are there for a reason, right? Since we know there's not going to be an answer, we're not putting somebody on the spot by asking maybe a tough question, right? So I hope that this question burst tool is something that you can take with you. And again, you can start to imagine that you can sort of make this your own by maybe you use this at the beginning of the process as a team. You can sort of say, let's do a question burst about how burnout might show up in our team, in our workplace. Maybe the question burst is about what could we accomplish as an organization if we could solve this, right? How might this be a benefit to us? So there's so many different ways to use this. A few other things really quickly before we turn it back over to Daniel. Again, we really want you to make this your own, and so there's a lot of things to consider when you think about that. So for example, if you're really not used to, in your organization, having a lot of conversations about engagement or well-being or burnout, maybe you don't have this culture of sort of openness. You might not sort of send somebody this document and say, complete this, we're going to sit down and talk about it. Maybe it's just one of these questions or the question burst tool as a part of your regular team meeting, right? Maybe it's that when you commit to a new project, you all have a conversation about how might burnout show up here. How can we prevent that as we think about the way that we're going to do this work and commit to this work as a team? So many different ways and places to go. Yeah, the other thing I just want to mention, because I think language is really important, when you sort of hold your organizational values or some of the language that you use in your teams and in your organizations, please integrate that into this. So we don't have to, you know, create something from scratch. It really can be maybe one of our organizational values has to do with effectiveness or excellence. And so we can say, how might burnout be getting in the way of that? And what would it look like for us to embrace excellence by dealing with this issue on the team? So I'm going to turn it back over to Daniel. Thanks so much for indulging me and for putting on your curiosity. It was really good to be with you.
So we're going to end with play, and to me, as you press into one virtue, it leads to all the others. I was just telling Ryan that, like, why is it that, like, my favorite virtue is the virtue that I just heard about? And that's definitely my experience this morning. Whether it's compassion or curiosity or humility, I truly think that, like, it's because character flows from the heart, and we're just so drawn to these heart conversations. I'm gonna get this off. Yeah. But we're gonna talk about play. If you're familiar with virtue work out of the Harvard positive psychology work of Seligman, I think he calls it zest. Zest. There's very little written on zest. And so we were going to, like, locate joy, but then we decided to do play. I do a lot of work in play in the workplace, and you can refer to some earlier tools to understand what are the characteristics of play and the dynamics of play. We're just going to dive in to a play protocol today. I do have to give warning that most of the time when you attempt to use these tools, if you put it on the agenda beforehand, it will be rejected by senior leaders. I've had that a number of times. And so I just Trojan horse it in. And so I don't even put it on the agenda. But I work a lot with engineers, and to this day now, they're like, we want to do that every time now. And so once you can win someone over to the power of play, you'll find it's a powerful protocol because it's fundamental to being human. Play is not like an add-on to humanity. That's why most office parties are like an oxymoron, right? Because it's like, oh yeah, something we need to do. It's like an afterthought. Most gifts, most play, most celebration, it's like, oh yeah, we got to do that at work. Rather than seeing to celebrate, to play is fundamental to being human. And so how do we adopt a mindset of play? You may be familiar with mindset work. It emerged in the early 80s, came to fruition with the work of Carol Dweck, and growth mindset versus fixed mindset. Joe, can someone help me with how to pronounce her name? Boaler, B-O-A-L-E-R? And she's the bomb on mindset, a lot in mathematics, really built on Carol Dweck's work. And then Ashley Buchanan around 2015. So a fixed mindset is where we think that aptitude, intelligence is something you either have or you don't. So you hear it in language like, you're so smart. Instead of like, well, how did you get that degree? You know, Brad, you're such a brain, rather than, man, you must have struggled really hard for many years to get where you are now. Tell me about that struggle. And so a fixed mindset says you have it or you don't, where a growth mindset is any aptitude, any intelligence can be expanded and multiplied. Well, it was built on in 2015 by Ashley Buchanan and Margaret Kern, and they introduced the concept of mutual benefit mindset, which I just think is a powerful evolution of mindset work, because it says it's not just about bringing your best self to the world, it's about bringing your best self for the world, which might sound like just a nuance, but it's pretty profound when you think about it. So that not only do I want to bring a growth mindset for myself and my own well-being and performance, but I want to do it for the sake of others. And there's a mutual benefit. And since then, there's been all sorts of work in mindset work ranging from abundance versus scarcity mindset. There's what's called an exponential mindset, which is critical for emerging technologies. I mean, it's just a different mindset when you think about emerging technologies and leveraging today's technologies for tomorrow transformation. That takes a different kind of mindset. So, a play mindset. A play mindset I want to propose is marked by a number of characteristics. The first one, we're on page 2 of the handout. Beyond Burnout, the Power of Playfulness and Mindset Mastery. So the essence of playfulness, as we move there, like when you think about play, what comes to mind? What's that? Children, yes. What else? Activity. Imagination. Positive energy. Improv. Yeah, those are all fundamental characteristics. First, you have enthusiasm. So play is marked by bringing a sense of energy or enthusiasm. Our brains are wired, our very biology is wired for enhancing our mood with energy. That's why when we stand up, we're not just standing up just to stand up. We're standing up because the mind follows the body. So get in your body, move. You're more than just a brain on a stick. There's what's called embodied cognition. It's important to move and to be in our bodies. There's spontaneity. Spontaneity and novelty are really important dimensions of play. Imagination. Creativity isn't just about art. It's a cognitive function, a survival tool, and a source of endless innovation. Imagination is fundamental to change. Play is a gateway for neuroplasticity. That is why it's so important for children to play, is because it's fundamental to their development as children. But there's what's called adult development. We never stop developing. And so play is fundamental to our development in every age and stage of life. Connection, social bonds, wonder, and humor are all components of play. And so what I want us to do is we're going to work through this next page. And the tool, very simply, typically when I would introduce this tool, we would spend seconds on the introduction. Like I would go over fix versus growth versus mutual benefit, but the chart kind of covers that more or less on the next stage. And so, let me get... It's page 3. Turn to page 3. And so in this chart below, we're going to go through each dimension and walk through a fixed mindset, a play mindset, and a mutual benefit mindset. And so with the play mindset, we're going to talk about no more. And we want you to feel it, or where do you identify with that no more? And I am, a growth mindset, to we will, a mutual benefit mindset. And so as we work through this, we're going to give you some time. We're going to give you like 5 to 7 minutes to work through this exercise. But right now what I want you to do is have your pen out and just mark up, again, whatever just registers with you, whatever you're feeling. Like maybe there's a certain story or path across that you register more than another. And so for enthusiasm, if we're going to move from fixed mindset, we need to say, no more suppressing my feelings and joys. That is, when I come to work, I'm not going to shelf my emotional life, and particularly my joy and my energy. I am passionate and excited about all I do. I will harness my energy for enthusiasm in every experience. To a mutual benefit mindset, we will leverage enthusiasm to uplift each other, creating an atmosphere of collective enthusiasm. Spontaneity. No more clinging to routine and avoiding surprises. I am adaptable, embracing change. I'll dive into new experiences. We will embrace the unexpected, creating joyful moments together. For imagination, no more stifling my creative thoughts. I am full of creativity and innovation. I will dream beyond my current reality. We will co-create, merging our imaginations for unique ideas. Connection. No more isolating myself from others. I am open-hearted, seeking meaningful connections. I will foster bonds that enrich my soul. We will nurture an environment of trust and deep connections. Wonder. No more accepting things at face value without curiosity. I am an explorer in awe of the world. I will seek understanding. We will share discoveries, celebrating wonder in every moment. Humor. No more constipation. Oh, it doesn't say that. Suppressing my laughter or avoiding humor. I am joyful, finding humor in the world. I will laugh at life's quirks. We will share laughter and find humor in our shared experiences. And so again, as you press into one virtue, it leads to all the others. I mean, just notice at the very end, just put under connection. What did we look at today? That was all about connection, compassion. What about wonder? I mean, it's right there in the chart. Curiosity. And what are the root kind of words of humor and humility? Hummus. Right? So it's like we're made from the same stuff. It's fundamental to being humor. Laughter is fundamental to being human. And so turn the page over. We're going to dive in. And so now your fires are at work. So everyone warm their hands in the fire. We're using our imagination. Right? Warm your fire. Doesn't that feel so warm? It's cold and gray outside, but we've got a fire. So someone put some more wood in there. And so what I want you to do is I want you to take 5 minutes of just reflecting and go through the chart, and you're seeking to fill out those blanks. And I want you to at least identify one theme. And so I want you to think about that theme. Maybe what was the no more, and then what is the I am, and what is the we will. Now, you have some options here. One, you can just write it out verbatim. Maybe it's like, oh, you're reading my story. But maybe it's not. Maybe a word needs to be changed. Maybe you want to merge a couple. I don't know. But what right now, today, here, do you want to say no more to? What do you want to say I am? You know, give voice to that desire. And what kind of commitment do you want to make to others? And using and leveraging this renunciation and declaration for not only your sake, but for the sake of others. And so I'm going to give you 5 minutes to do that. And then I'm going to break, and we're going to ask to share. And so critical in the sharing, first off, is you can totally pass. I just need a couple brave souls at each table. Now, that would be both of you. So, but just share what you're willing to share. And it would be, it's true, think of it as an offering a gift. But it's helpful just to share what you wrote. You know, take some time to write out your thoughts. No more, I am, we will. And so at some table, everyone will have the opportunity to share. And so we'll take 5 to 10 minutes just to have a heartfelt fireside share. But first, I'm going to give you 5 minutes just to write down your thoughts and reflections. And so dig into the chart. 5 minutes and go around your table, and we just need one brave soul to share to get it going. And let's talk about the declarations we want to make. So maybe you would just honor us, or maybe you need to say it again. But can I get someone to just walk through their no more, I am, we will? Would someone be willing to share with you? Thank you.
I will share that I will no more suppressing my joy and enthusiasm. I am enthusiastic about life and seizing energizing moments. And my example was at home, like my husband will be in his office and he'll have music on and I'll walk in and I'll be like, and he's like, okay, now's not the time. And then I'm like, oh, I'm like so deflated. So I said, one, I'm going to avoid those situations, but getting to the we will get out and do things out in nature and so forth, and stop taking things so seriously, and I'll lift him up and I'll learn to read the room a little better.
Come on. Love it. Love it. Anyone else?
My no more was no more predisposed misconceptions. Starting with negativity. I am open to new ideas and other people's ideas, and we will improve through communication, efforts from all, and team-mindedness.
What were your takeaways at your table? Any common themes?
The best is yet to come.
Best is yet to come. Well, what I want to encourage is I've watched teams break down with this protocol. So you need to be aware of that. It stirs a lot. I've watched hardened, seasoned executives tear up in this protocol because they realize that they have forfeited play. Not just for days or weeks or months or even years, but for decades. And they realize that they've abdicated, they have forfeited a part of what it means to be human and soulful. And play, this kind of mindset, impacts the total employee experience. From recruiting, interviewing, onboarding, training, interviewing, to exiting. There's an opportunity to bring energy, imagination, connection, wonder, humor. And it takes skill. It's a character trait to bring energy and zest and joy to interactions. But joy is just right before us. I mean, you can unlock it if you're willing to see it. Every conversation is an opportunity for connection. I mean, do you realize we have that power? We have the power to bring others down, to drain them, or to energize them. And I don't know about you, but no more. I don't want to miss a moment. I don't want to miss a moment that I have to energize someone in a positive way, in a playful way, in a joyful way. And so if you go, I want to walk you through a couple of the appendices that are critical for this. The first one is on page 7. No, I don't. It's on page, page 7. So this one is, I know it's not your fault, tackling real world barriers to playfulness. And this just walks through, what do I do if play is not allowed, or compassion is dismissed as weak, or if humility is seen as something that, no, you gotta bring your confidence. And that would just be a misunderstanding of humility in the first place. But it kind of walks through some things for you to consider, ranging from, acknowledge there's a bigger world than your workplace. Find the strength from within. Find your tribe. You need people within your workplace, but you need people outside your workplace. How can you start incorporating small joys? A lot of the things you probably heard around your table were not like big trips somewhere. But how can I begin to bring some micro moments and joy into my life? For example, like just real time. For me, like it's singing loud in the car. And I know some of you are like, I do that every day. I'm like, well, high five for you. But recently I've started just singing loud in the car and just like getting in my body. Yes, I believe in 15 minutes of mindfulness meditation a day, but I'll tell you, they haven't researched it, but if they did, I think singing for 15 minutes would be 15 minutes all day, every day. Dance. I mean, how many of y'all like to dance? Come on, some. When was the last time you just turned on music and broke it down? And so I started doing that recently, and I am a horrible dancer. My wife is here, she can attest. But we'll just dance, and my kids will dance with me. And it's just like, but I'm actively doing it, not just because I like to dance, but because I'm like, this is good for my well-being. I need to move. I mean, what is it about even playing 9 to 5? And we were all just like, this is amazing, right? But how can we incorporate music, song, dance, play into our everyday lives? Expand your toolbox. Where are you in a fixed mindset in relationship to the range of playful opportunities? So what I hear a lot is, well, we tried that. It doesn't work. Really, being human doesn't work? Yeah. So how many of you tried to do something awesome at work and it failed? Like you did an office party and you put all this money and energy and a third of your team came. Or a third of your team got into it. And that's because we all play differently. Some of us are more cerebral. Any of y'all like Wordle? Some of us are more embodied. We like to get physical. Some of us are more role-playing, gaming. And so this is basic diversity, equity, and inclusion. How do we make space for other expressions of play? How can we get curious regarding how might I stretch my expression of play? So expand your toolbox. The final thing I want to say is know when to leave. And if you're in a position where you can't leave and pivot, that's where you want to get counsel. That's where you want to expand your tribe. You want to search for wisdom and search for opportunities to get out of a situation or system that will bring you down. Edward Deming is a famous consultant. He says, a bad system will beat a good person every time. That's the power of systems. The next appendix is the science behind mindset shifting and the next protocol we're going to go to. And so, especially the next protocol, it's gonna feel a little crazy. And if you need to know the science behind what we're doing, it's all there. Go nerd out. Page 9 is another appendix, and it's 48 mini moves for mega mind shifts, 48 playful pathways to renewed energy. And so I wanted to provide you with just a toolbox, just little tiny habits, little micro changes that you can make in your everyday life that would be helpful. And it's based on the work of Tiny Habits by Fogg, and if you're familiar with James Clear, Atomic Habits. And again, take it, adapt it, work it, but find what works for you. But it looks at the different dimensions of play and provides some habits. And then the final is just an appendix for all of us on an annotated, or not an annotated, just a bibliography. And so works on burnout that we highly recommend, compassion, humility, curiosity, and play. And so just inform your mind, dig in. Any questions on play mindsets? Or thoughts, questions, ideas, feelings before we go to the next protocol? Yes?
Okay, so you're implementing play, practice, but the people around you are not playful, very stoic, and don't play. How can you navigate that challenge?
Yeah, there's a lot of barriers to play, just like there's a lot of barriers to any kind of inclusion. There's shame. There's guilt, there's busyness, it's endless. The barriers that keep us from unlocking play in ourselves and unlocking co-play or co-presence. But I would encourage to get curious, to have compassion on them, to recognize that like it's in there, it's in there. And curiosity specifically, what we encourage is to seek to identify what is their play identity. And so we have play identities. They're formed from our socioeconomic background, our family of origin, influences in our lives. They shape the way we like to play. And just get curious about how to unlock it. Like, so for example, a lot of the workplace is male dominated, right? And what sort of play is completely acceptable in a male dominated workforce? Golf. Costs a lot of money too. And so I'll just call out these men. I'm like, really? Like, you're dropping all this money on some golf tournament and you want to explore different types of play. But, I mean, that's an indictment. I want to encourage an indictment right off the bat. That might not go well. But seek to identify kind of their type of play and how could you bring that in. I just had a conversation this week with a leader that might put some flesh on your question. He pushed back pretty hard. And it was just like a conversation, like I was like, yeah, we're doing a workshop this week. And he was like, what part does play have at work? And I'm like, well, tell me, how do you engage your people? And it was really interesting. It's probably proximity bias on my part, but he was like, well, we just did a golf tournament. And as he started talking about it, he goes, oh, I see what you mean. Because we've only had like 1/3 of the signups we expected. And I'm like, well, really, tell me more about your workplace. It was like 600 people. And he's like, half of them are Latino. And half of them work the night shift. And I was like, okay, so like, let's take a portion of that golf money and let's get a food truck and like, maybe let's do a soccer tournament. I just started throwing out ideas to him. And let's do the soccer tournament at 6 a.m., you know, in a lit field, and like bring food trucks, like bring your family, like we just started talking about like, what does it look like, one, for you to meet that culture where they're at, and then I would again encourage to explore the play identity expressed through that culture. And so, again, play protocols are as challenging as any inclusion dynamic. It's very complex. And there's not much of an appetite for much more complexity because we don't have much cognitive surplus, right? We don't have, so how can you introduce various play protocols that would create some small wins and you can capture and sustain that momentum? Does that help?
Yeah, it does. Thank you very much.
Absolutely.
Dan, if I can just throw in there.
Please.
For everybody, Daniel built a tool for us, another tool on Play for us, I don't know, 8, 10 months ago or whatever. And actually, in that tool, it has all play identities and ways to go through and assess them. So you can do that with your workplace. It will help you generate more ideas that are tailored to people's play identities. So just go to the Center for Positive Leadership website and download that.
Yeah, it's way more like, it's almost like there's a pre to this talk, and it's do a play audit. So we actually have teams do play audits. What's your play identity? What are the play barriers? And that's critical if we're gonna get resourcing for play and really like get in this game. All right, turn to page 6. We're gonna close. And so we're gonna bring everything together. Okay, so stand up. You're gonna need page 6. And so this is just like, hey, enough talk, let's do it. Right on? Yeah. Give me right on. This is the universal sign for right on, maybe. Or at least right now it is. And so it's time for a manifesto. That's what we're going to do. And the manifesto is called Unburnt, a Playful Manifesto Against Burnout. Can I get some snaps? So actually we're on page 5. I jumped ahead. First we're gonna practice the cues. Can I get my colleagues up here to help me out with this? And so what we're going to do is we're going to walk through the cues, and then we're just going to read the one-page manifesto. And so we're going to practice. This is the practice round, just for the cues. The first cue is the inhale the truth cue. And so on the count of 3, we're going to take a deep synchronized breath, and we're going to breathe in, and we're going to feel the energy coursing within, and then we're going to exhale slowly. So ready? 1, 2, 3. Breathe in. 1, 2, 3. Breathe out. 3, 2, 1. Oh, you guys did great. The next one is shared wonder. You could also call it shared compassion. And so like think sparkle eyes, right? Like, and then just connect eyes with some other people. Just the shared wonder, right? Just look around. Yeah. Good job. Good job. So the next is the embrace of empathy cue. And so because of the season we're in, fall, like we're just going to do an air high five. So reach out to your neighbor, stretching your arm, and offer a high five. There you go. If you want to go full on high five, you can. All right. The next one we just warmed up is the cheerful cha-cha. All right? And so we're just going to take a small step forward, small step back. Let's do it again. There you go. There you go. Yeah, I love it. Okay. The next is the united lift cue. So lift your arms to the sky. As you stretch to the sky and think about the stars, think about the significance, the mattering of the stars. You are significant. You matter. Good job. The next is the balanced breath. Once again, let's breathe in. Count of 3. 1, 2, 3. Breathe in. Breathe out. And in this one, this is where we're breathing out and we're just thinking balance in this one. The final cue is the creative clap cue. So on the count of 3, we're going to clap. 1, 2, 3. Let's do it again. 1, 2, 3. All right. You guys ready for this? Mm-hmm. All right. Okay, so what we're going to do is turn the page, page 6. I'm going to read. You do the cues, and we're going to read together what's in bold. So, Unburnt, a playful manifesto against burnout. Here's the preamble. In the vast global theater where stories of toil echo and burnout lurks, we rise. Beacons of varied narratives, backgrounds, and strengths. Here we don't just confront myths, but dispel them with truths, binding ourselves in a promise of renewal and unity. Together, inhale the truth cue. Declaration 1, the beauty of curiosity. The world teems with mysteries, and our hunger for understanding is what ties us together. Curiosity doesn't just ignite the mind, it rejuvenates the spirit, offering respite from the monotony that sometimes weighs us down. Shared wonder cue. Declaration 2, the warmth of compassion. Beyond the statistics and research lies the heart, a heart that understands, listens, and supports. We vow to remember that behind every account of burnout is a person seeking acknowledgement, fairness, and connection. Embrace of empathy cue. Declaration 3, the dance of resilience. Challenged, but undefeated. We pivot, adapt, and grow. Spontaneity isn't just a word, it's our armor, our cheerful defense against the rigidity that threatens our spirit. 5 cha-chas cue. Declaration 4. Inclusion, our guiding star. We're more than our roles. We're a vibrant assembly of stories, dreams, and aspirations. Together, we craft a world where every voice matters and every story holds weight. United lift cue. Reach to the stars. Declaration 5, balance, our shared quest. In the ebb and flow of life, we seek harmony. We'll do that again. We seek harmony. Recognizing that while our profession demands, they also need to nurture. We advocate for workplaces that respect both action and reflection. Balanced breath cue. Declaration 6, the power of playful imagination. A remedy to burnout's shadow, we unleash our collective creativity. Playfulness isn't an escape, but a tool, a key to unlock renewed vigor, joy, and connection. Creative clap cue. 1, 2, 3. Let's try again. 2, 3. And together, in bold unison, from the depths of science to the heights of our dreams, we declare no more to unchallenged myths, no more to silence offering. With beauty in our sights, compassion in our hearts, and truth is our guide, we commit to renew, reimagine, and reignite. Let's forge forward a beacon against burnout together. Woo! All right. So everyone needs to grab one of these. Grab one of these. So I'm going to walk you through it. So what you're going to do is you're going to get it in your hand like this. All right? You get it in your hand like this. And then you're going to tear off the top. Are you guys ready for this? All right. Hey, play requires celebration. And so on the count of 3, we're just going to bring this all together and celebrate the time of co-presence with one another. We showed up, we paid attention, and maybe just maybe, over these hours, we reclaimed some of our humanity. So in celebration of our humanity, in celebration of our time together, let's throw up our hands.
You want me to? I can do it. Okay, thank you. This is the end of our program. We're so glad you were here. We got music. We hope you had fun. I want to introduce one person that we did not introduce today, and that's Ryan Quinn. He's over there. He is our academic director of the Center for Positive Leadership. And if you enjoyed today, we're having another one of these on remote work on January 24th. More information to come.